John Stewart turned to Dr Sarah Perkins, a climate scientist from the University of New South Wales, who's in Sydney and witnessing the fires firsthand.
Bushfires in general are a way of life in Australia. Ever since the Aboriginals were here, they used to burn off a lot, and the native vegetation, if you will, has adapted to this constant fire regime. A lot of the plants actually need fire to regenerate themselves and reproduce. However, there's two interesting things about these particular fires, one being that they're occurring very early on in the season. So we usually don't get bushfires until December, January, maybe even into February. It's currently mid-October here, and it's spring here. Bushfires during spring are basically unheard of. It's also the intensity. So occasionally you might get a few bushfires during the season in various different locations. That's fairly natural. But the intensity that we're experiencing really only happens, I can't put an exact figure on it, but at least once every 2 to 3, maybe even 5 decades. So it's the time of the year that the bushfires are occurring and their intensity which make these events particularly rare indeed.
And climate change, man-made climate change, has been mentioned several times in connection with how bad these fires are. Do you think that's a contributing factor?
Absolutely, without a doubt. I listened to what the chief of the UN was saying yesterday about the links between Australian bushfires and human-induced climate change, and I agree with her 100%. There is definitely an element of human-induced climate change embedded within the fires that we're experiencing now. And that's particularly with the extremely warm winter and even the extremely warm 12 months that we've experienced here in Australia. So the extremely warm temperatures we've seen have actually been related to human-induced climate change already. And they've set the conditions for the bush to basically dry out, which makes them prime for bushfires to occur.
So, looking forwards, assuming climate change will continue, are you concerned?
Yeah, I am concerned actually. So my particular work looks at how extreme temperature is projected to change in the future, usually looking at things like heat waves. And we are definitely seeing an increase should we continue to emit greenhouse gases as we currently are. And with that, an element of fire risk certainly increases as well. So in the future, it is likely that we'll see more events like we're experiencing now in terms of their intensity and timing. What's even more scary is in Australia, the Rural Fire Service has a period where they're allowed to go out and do hazard reduction burning. So they do burning around the perimeters of where people live near the bush. And the idea is that if a bushfire occurs, it won't break that sort of containment line, if you will. Because our winters are shortening and our springs are starting to occur a little earlier, that's already small window where they can go and do this hazard reduction is being reduced further and further. So now not only are we seeing increasing conditions in terms of weather for fire, we're also seeing more fuel load available too.
And of course, we've heard of other extreme fire events around the world. Do you think this is something that's going to increase globally?
Certainly in areas of the world which are already fire prone, there's definitely the chance that there will be an increase of wildfires or bushfires within the future, consistent with increasing temperatures, which is what we expect under increased greenhouse gas emissions.
Dr Sarah Perkins from the University of New South Wales talking there to John Stewart.
Thank you for downloading from the BBC. For details of our complete range of podcasts and our terms of use, go to bbcworldservice.com/podcasts.